The Pied Piper's Magic, the mystery of Hamelin's disappearing children once upon a time. In the picturesque town of Hamelin, nestled in the heart of Germany, a terrible infestation took hold. It wasn't a plague of sickness or bad weather, but a relentless plague of rats. But these weren't the normal little scurrying rats you might expect. These were huge, fierce black rats. Rats so bold that they didn't wait for nightfall to creep about. Instead, they ran through the town streets, even in broad daylight. The rats were everywhere. They gnawed on the townspeople's food, stole what was left in the markets, and chewed holes through walls and floors. They made nests in people's attics, scampered across their beds, and even crawled into their shoes. No matter how hard the people tried, they couldn't get rid of the rats. They trapped them, poisoned them, and chased them away, but nothing worked. The more rats they got rid of, the more appeared, as if by some terrible magic. Despair hung over Hamelin like a dark cloud. Just when the townspeople thought they couldn't bear it any longer, something strange happened. One bright morning, a mysterious stranger appeared at the town gates. He was a tall man, with a long, crooked nose and bright yellow eyes that gleamed beneath his large, floppy hat. His coat was a patchwork of colors, and most unusual of all, he carried a long flute by his side. His appearance was strange, almost like a figure from a fairy tale, but the most remarkable thing about him was how he walked with such confidence, as if he knew exactly where he was going. The people of Hamelin watched in amazement as the man strolled right into the town square, where a crowd had gathered. His arrival stirred whispers among the townsfolk, who stared at his strange mustache that curled like a rat's tail. "Who is he?" the people asked, and one by one, they began to wonder if this stranger could somehow help them with their rat problem. Without waiting for an invitation, the stranger walked straight into the town hall, where the town council, led by the clever but somewhat greedy mayor, was meeting. The man spoke in a clear, confident voice. "I am the Pied Piper. I've heard of your troubles, and I can rid Hamelin of every last rat before the sun sets today. But my services come at a price." The council members gasped. The Piper's voice was firm but calm, and his yellow eyes seemed to glow as he made his proposal. "I demand 1 silver coin for every rat I remove from Hamelin," he declared. The mayor, known for his cunning ways, rubbed his chin thoughtfully. 1 silver coin per rat? That would cost us a fortune. We can't possibly agree to that, he whispered to his advisors. But he wasn't about to let this stranger walk away with a bag of silver. He had a plan. So, the mayor stood and addressed the piper with a sly smile. "Very well. We agree to your price," he said. "For each rat, we will give you 1 silver coin, if you rid us of them all. But only after we've counted the heads of the rats you catch." The piper smiled, but it wasn't a warm, friendly smile. "As you wish," he said, bowing slightly. "I will start tonight." The people of Hamelin were warned to stay inside their homes as night fell. The town grew still, with only the faint rustling of the rats in the dark corners of the streets. Then, as the moonlight spilled over the rooftops, the Pied Piper stepped into the middle of the market square, raised his flute to his lips, and began to play. At first, the sound was soft, almost magical, a melody that floated gently on the cool night air. It was sweet and light, and it drifted through the alleys and homes. But as the piper continued to play, the music grew louder, more insistent, more commanding. And then something incredible happened. The rats began to stir. From every house, every hole, and every shadow, they emerged, twitching their whiskers and following the sound of the flute as if they were enchanted. They scurried in long lines from every corner of the town, forming a massive swarm of squeaking creatures, all headed toward the piper, who played with his eyes half closed, as if lost in the music. The piper walked slowly through the streets, and the rats followed him in a never-ending line. He led them out of the town and towards the river that flowed just beyond its gates. With a wave of his hand, the piper directed the rats to the water's edge, and one by one, they jumped in. The current swept them away, and soon, the river was filled with the swirling bodies of the rats, carried far away from Hamelin. Finally, as the moon hung high in the sky, the last rat, The oldest and largest of them all, its fur white with age, appeared. "Is that all of them?" the piper asked the rat with a smirk. "Yes," the old rat replied in a raspy voice. "All 999,000 rats." With that, the final rat leaped into the river, and the piper turned back toward the town, satisfied with his work. The next morning, the people of Hamelin awoke to a peaceful, rat-free town. For the first time in weeks, there was no scurrying, no squeaking, no gnawing in the night. The townspeople cheered and celebrated their newfound freedom. But the Pied Piper hadn't forgotten the deal. He returned to the town hall to collect his payment. "I have rid Hamelin of every last rat," the piper announced. "Now I will take my silver, 1 coin for every rat." The mayor sneered. "Where are the heads of these rats you speak of? If you cannot show us, you won't be paid the full amount." The piper's eyes gleamed dangerously. "You know very well where the rats are," he said. "In the river, as agreed. Pay me what I am owed." But the mayor, greedy as ever, refused. "I'll give you 50 silver coins and no more," he said with a dismissive wave of his hand. "Be glad we're paying you anything at all." The piper's face darkened. His smile disappeared, and his voice was no longer calm. "Keep your coins," he said coldly. "Your children will pay the price." With that, the piper turned and marched out of the hall, disappearing into the streets. The people laughed nervously at his threat, thinking nothing more of it. But the very next day, something strange and terrible happened. While the townspeople were gathered in the church for Sunday service, a haunting melody began to play. It was the same magical tune the piper had played for the rats, but this time it was different, softer, sweeter, and more enchanting. The children of Hamelin heard the music first. Unable to resist, they left their homes and ran into the streets, where the Pied Piper stood, playing his flute. Without hesitation, the children followed him, their faces glowing with joy. They danced and laughed as they followed the piper out of town, just as the rats had done. The piper led them far away, to a towering mountain that loomed in the distance. As the children approached, the mountain cracked open like a door, and the piper and the children disappeared inside. When the townspeople returned from church, they found the streets empty, silent, except for 3 little boys who had been too slow to follow the piper. They told the people what had happened, but it was too late. The children were gone, and the mountain had sealed itself shut. The people of Hamelin were devastated. They searched for days, but the children were never found. The mayor was filled with guilt, for his own children had vanished as well. The town of Hamelin fell into sorrow and silence, its laughter gone, replaced by the haunting memory of the piper's flute. Many years later, travelers from faraway lands came to Hamelin with strange stories. They spoke of a region in Transylvania where the people spoke a language unlike the rest of the country. They spoke German, the very language of Hamelin. And so, the people began to believe that the children who had followed the piper had made their home in this far-off land, never to return. And though no one knew for sure, the legend of the Pied Piper lived on, a warning to always keep your promises and to never underestimate the power of a stranger's song.